That is not the whole story. Eden Atwood is a musician, a teacher, a mother, and a person with androgen insensitivity syndrome. AIS is one among a variety of differences of sex development called intersex. That's another name for them. What that means for Eden is looking like this with chromosomes that look like this. The question I ask is, when applying for a driver's license, should Eden check the M box or the F box? And when checking those boxes, does something change? Let's consider another variety of intersex. It's the moment of your child's birth. The doctor is bringing your child forward and saying, "Congratulations on the birth of your healthy baby boy." Your confusion turns to fear as a flurry of activity culminates in doctors sitting down with you to tell you your son's penis is too small for the eventual job it will have to do of satisfying a woman sexually. You're talking about your newborn. They recommend the most obvious next step. Cut it off. Rear your son as a daughter. Not so obvious? You hold your child's psychological well-being in the balance, you say yes, and life unfolds with all of the drama you might expect to find in a tragic fiction novel, but it is not fiction, it is real, and it is not rare. 1 in 2,000 children is born with a physical manifestation of intersex. That's more common than cystic fibrosis. When I was at Johns Hopkins Hospital, I was a surgeon in training. I spent 4 weeks at Johns Hopkins. I took care of children with intersex. I learned many things there, but among those, 2 stand out very prominently. The first is the enormous value in unknowing gender. And the second is that in the big picture, we know very little about sex development. Now, this is Tiger DeVore as a child. Tiger is a clinical psychologist, a certified sex therapist, and whose life has been dedicated to advocacy and activism for people with intersex. At birth, Tiger's penis was well suited for sitting down to pee. It worked. The surgeons convinced Tiger's parents that unless the penis were reconfigured so that Tiger could stand to pee, then psychological damage was certain. Tiger's first reconstructive surgery was at 3 months. From 3 months until 23 years, 15 more surgeries would be performed in the name of preserving and protecting Tiger's psychological well-being. What was that like? Let's look at Tiger's words. I'm going to read them here. When you're a little kid, you're supposed to go on summer vacation. When everybody comes back to school, you're supposed to tell about what you did on vacation. Well, I always went to the hospital. All these other kids were going to Yellowstone, so I learned very early to lie. I couldn't tell the kids that I'd spent the summer in the hospital and had my genitals chopped up again. Tiger struggled with adolescence, but ultimately summoned resilience. Came to terms with being intersexed. Not pretending to be a boy, not fearing being a girl, but just being intersexed. When that happened, the task of passing as a boy became actually tremendously fun. And I think maybe you would agree with me that when Tiger really became serious about passing as a boy, the word overachiever comes to my mind. 30 years ago, Tiger took a very bold step during an interview with Oprah Winfrey in Baltimore. Tiger was the first person to come out publicly as a person with intersex in the media. That's brave. Now, I've introduced you to Eden and to Tiger. I've actually introduced Eden and Tiger to you. They don't know you yet. To shine a light on a gap between what we think we know and reality. And it reminds me of a similar gap that really is very, very akin to this. The 16th century Copernicus overturned more than 2,000 years of certainty that the Earth was at the center of the solar system. I mean, are we really that far off the mark? Well, what does it take to make a baby? It takes 1 sperm, 1 egg, you fuse those to make a single cell. There's this 9-month magical mystery chore, and out of the chute comes a fully developed, richly sentient human. That journey is analogous to this kind of a journey. You know, start out here somewhere with a single cell, a one-celled organism, end up over there with a fully developed human. Along the way, we navigate with a map, a genetic map. It's been passed down from generation to generation. Every generation has changed it. There have been parts lost and there have been parts added. There's sort of bold print, things that were deemed to be very important, and some fine print, things that maybe don't matter so much anymore. There are things there that are totally irrelevant, but they persist. And we all start out with a different map. And along the way, we face adversity. I mean, this is treacherous. There's exposure to chemicals and to hormones. There is, a hostile, adverse environment. At the very least, as we transform from a single cell to a fully developed human, we undergo 1 trillion structural changes. That's at the least. We transform from a single cell to a trillion-cell human, the most complex machine on the planet. We arrive with a physical signature, with sort of irrefutable evidence that every single one of us is different. It's our fingerprint. There are no two alike. Even twins have different fingerprints. Now, I'm going to tell you that gender, the development of gender, vastly more complex than the development of the skin on our finger pad. There are as many genders as there are people in the planet. Each of us has a different and independently self-determined gender, a gender print, like personality, dynamic over time. If we all decided to assemble ourselves, that we positioned ourselves based on our gender, it would look like this. I mean, some folks think that it looks like we would stack ourselves up in this spectrum flanked between 2 perfect ideals, male and female, but that's not what it looks like. It looks like this. And yet this, which has space for all this diversity, it is hard to control. It's not tidy, so we pull all of that into 2 boxes. And then as we struggle to reconcile what we think we know about sex and gender, we smash those together as if they are 2 sides of the same coin, for which the value is reduced to a single variable: the presence or the absence of this defining physical feature. It's a penis, if anybody doesn't know. Our fixation on genitals is so entrenched in our cultural mindset that it serves as the functional reference point for how we relate. It anchors our language. It keeps us bound to groups based on a body part. It's crazy. In the womb, we connect without words or symbols. We experience our original, primal reference point for how we connect, how we relate. 2 beings transcending physical boundaries, connecting vital rhythm to vital rhythm, mind to mind. But the mind is big. The mind is mysterious. We can't hold that in our hands. We can't see that with our eyes. And so rather than seeing a child as a person with an uncharted course, unimaginable potential, and a boundless capacity to connect with anybody, we bind them into boxes. When a newborn is delivered into the factory that we call society, they are inspected and sorted and certified and shuttled off to life track male or life track female, depending on the appearance of their genitals. And if their genitals make us nervous or we don't quite understand what's going on there, they don't conform to what is somebody's idea of what they must look like in order to seamlessly navigate the mandates of life track male or life track female, then we send them off to a fabrication department where a design team fabricates a new genital appearance in the name of preserving their psychological well-being. Is that necessary? Can looking different coexist with psychological well-being, emotional well-being. Absolutely. Hida Valoria's parents said no to surgery. They said no to hormonal therapy. A clitoris that did not conform to somebody's idea of normal did not become the central organizing theme in Hida's life. Instead, in the context of a rich childhood and youth, it was an unimportant body feature. In a childhood or youth that was marked with academic success, with a gifted program, with math league and honor roll, with athletics, both cheerleading and all-star basketball, and lots of socializing. Different was compatible with emotional and psychological well-being. It is time to stop cutting the genitals of infants and children just so that we can bind them into MF boxes. It is time to stop cutting the freedom of people by applying labels, nonsense words, homosexual, bisexual, intersex, intersexual, transsexual, transgender, groin-focused words that bind us into in-groups and out-groups, entrenched in a state of perpetual dispute. Destructive words that keep us bound, in all of humanity bound, in the realm of UVT, us versus them. It is time that we unbind ourselves from thousands of years of certainties that place our reproductive parts, our reproductive potential at the center of who we are and how we relate. It is time to raise our gaze from between the legs and so that we can see that it is our mind that is at the center of who we are and how we relate. In my journey from one cell to sentience, through some magic of biology, through the wonders and the miracles of nature, my mind was embodied. I stand before you, the embodiment of a mind. You are the embodiment of a mind. We are embodied minds, not bodies that happen to have minds attached to them so we can function and move and reproduce. It is time to transcend our physical boundaries, to come together across these physical differences that divide us. It's time to unknow gender. Thank you.